What is the toughest passage in the Bible? How is it being used in apologetic conversations today? And what are some potential solutions that have been offered to it? That is what we are going to explore today. Coming up next. So, welcome back to the Michael Lofton Show on Reason and Theology, where we do not shy away from very difficult situations and scenarios being considered, whether they pertain to the Bible, whether it's church history, whether it's something going on in the church today. We talk about everything. We don't shy away from it. We face it head on and take a look at the matter and consider it honestly and openly. And that is what we are going to do today with considering, I think, and it appears many would agree with me that the most difficult passage in the Bible is actually found in Numbers 31. You might think that the most difficult thing in the Bible is, the slaying of an entire ethnicity in the Old Testament, or, God sending a lying spirit to deceive people, or, stuff like that, right? God commanding the killing of various peoples. You might think that's the most difficult, and those are probably explored in these conversations the most, but there's actually something even more difficult than that in Numbers 31, because it not only includes issues involving the slaughter of numerous people, but also some other things that are incredibly sensitive in nature as far as the topic. So let me maybe just caution you right now, don't have children around for this episode, because we are going to have to discuss some incredibly sensitive information here. And I am going to try to use some veiled language to describe some of this, so that I don't get booted by YouTube for even addressing some of this content. But we have to address it because it's in the Bible, right? And so if we're going to do an honest and open consideration of some of these things, we have to face them head on. And as I'm going to point out, these things are being brought up in discussions with people online. It's starting to become very, very popular to explore some of these topics. And so it's not something that one should shy away from, but should rather face head on. Well, what am I talking about? I am, again, going over Numbers 31. We're going to maybe start at verse 13. Let me share my screen and show you what all is going on here. And after a consideration of the difficulty, we're going to look and see what some commentaries say about the matter, what various solutions have what are some solutions that people have proposed online. And I'm then going to show problems with the solutions as well, some further challenges with them that have to be considered. And then after that, we're going to explore how these points are being used in apologetic circles and discussions, and why I think this deserves further discussion. Okay, so you should be able to see on your screen the Bible here, Numbers 31. And I do want to remind y'all, hit that like button and hit the subscribe button if you appreciate an honest and open discussion of controversies, difficulties, whether, again, they're in the Bible or church history or contemporary society. If you appreciate that, and that I'm honestly attempting to examine these things, please hit that subscribe button and the like button. Okay, Numbers 31, verse 13. Moses and Eleazar, the priest, and all the chiefs of the congregation went to meet them outside the camp. And Moses was angry with the officers of the army, the Israelite army, the commanders of thousands and the commanders of hundreds, who had come from service in the war. Now, what war is it talking about? Well, it tells you at the beginning of the chapter, the Lord said to Moses, "Avenge the people of Israel on the Midianites." Afterwards, you shall be gathered to your people. And then Moses spoke to the people, saying, arm men from among you for the war, that they may go against Midian to execute the Lord's vengeance on Midian. So this is a war that they're commanded to go and engage in. And then afterwards, Moses is really angry with the people. And here's why. Moses said to them, have you let all the women live? Behold, these, on Balaam's advice, caused the people of Israel to act treacherously against the Lord in the incident of Peor. So the plague came among the congregation of the Lord. Now, therefore, kill every male among the little ones. Okay, so here it's outright telling you, and we're going to explore the Hebrew text here, what is being said, but it's outright telling you the little boys. Okay, so these are small male children. And again, this is here. Let me find it because it moved on me. Wow, it went to a completely different book on me there. Let's go to Numbers 31. Okay. I don't know how it completely took me to a different book, but here we are. Have you let all the women live? They deceived the congregation, they deceived the people and led them into idolatry. So kill every male among the little ones. Kill all the little boys. And kill every woman who has known a man by lying with him. So every woman who has been sexually active at any point in her life with another male, so someone who's not a virgin, kill them. But all the young girls who have not known man by lying with him, keep alive for yourselves. We're going to see what that means here in a moment, but you know what that means. And we're going to find out how young is young. When it talks about little girls, young girls, keep alive for yourself, obviously in the context of sex. How young is young? And what's going on here? Okay, now you can already see why this is the most difficult and toughest passage in the Bible. You can see where we're going. And camp outside the camp 7 days. Whoever of you has killed a person, you now need to ritually purify yourself. And so we need to take a look at what's going on here. Okay, so let's take a look at the Hebrew. Let me scroll down a little bit. Maybe make the text a little bit smaller. Okay, you should see, here we go. Kill every male among the little ones. Tough is the Hebrew word here. So when it says little boys, the little ones, tough is what's being described. We will see what the commentary here actually has to say about who exactly this is and how young they are. But notice when it speaks of the little girls, it's the exact same word, tough. So there's three categories of people that are being discussed here, right? You have the women who have led people into idolatry. These are women who have lost their virginity already. Kill all of them. That's why Moses is angry that the women were allowed to live. Because usually at this time period, women were allowed to live and were used as captives. He says, kill all of them. They led you guys into idolatry. The young little boys, kill them, but the young little girls keep for yourselves sexually. And again, the age group of the young boys that are slaughtered is the same age group as the young girls. Now, how young is young? All right. Well, take a look at this biblical resource here. When we take a look at tough and the context of this word, it says little children, offspring that are young and not yet able to easily walk long distances. Okay, that's how young they are. They can't walk really far. And, okay, how young is young? How young is one who can't walk long distances? nor fully developed in their moral values. Deuteronomy 139. Now, what does Deuteronomy 139 say, you might wonder? Well, let's actually take a look and see, again, how young is how young. Deuteronomy 139. Same word is being used for them, tough, right? So what's the age group of these people who don't know the difference between right and wrong? They're so young they don't really know that. Well, let's take a look here. 139. And things moved on me once more. It's like Verbum does not want to work correctly for me at this point. Well, I'll just read it to you from my Bible here in front of me, but let me go back to the verse that we were looking at. And I'll just read it to you manually since Verbum wants to mess with me. Deuteronomy 139. This is how young the people are contextually. So if you open up to Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 39, and your little ones, same Hebrew term, who you said would become prey, and your children who today have no knowledge of good and evil, they shall go in there, and to them I will give it, and they shall possess it. As for you, turn and journey into the wilderness and in the direction of the Red Sea. And he's talking about the people, the Israelites going into the promised land, and he's talking about your little ones who don't know the difference between right and wrong yet. They're going to inherit the land. Now, how young is someone who doesn't know the difference between right and wrong? Well, probably below the age of reason. What is universally recognized generally as the age of reason? 7 and below, right? Okay. So contextually, the term being used here is probably around 7 years and below. All right. That's how young is young when we're speaking of numbers here. So let me once again go back to the word here. Scrolling down just a little bit. All the young girls, we go back to the term. It says, little children, offspring that are young and not yet easily able to walk long distances, nor fully developed in their moral values, as we just saw. It then says this is a class of persons that are not adult males. Now, in this context, it's not adult females, but also could be not adult males. And so considered relatively helpless to defend oneself. And then it gives a number of other biblical passages. So if you're wanting to know how this term is used and how young is young, there's your answer according to these biblical tools. So again, you can see clearly why this is the toughest passage in the Bible, because you have a number of things going on. Number one, kill a whole bunch of little boys. And the boys didn't do anything. Kill all the women who have known a man that are non-virgins. Why? Well, because the women led people into idolatry. Well, all of them did it? Or is this collective punishment? So there's another difficulty there. And then keep alive the little girls. We're talking about below the age of reason. Certainly below puberty. Keep alive for yourselves sexually, as we're going to see here. Because it allows them to then have intercourse with them. And you might say, well, okay, well, maybe it's just saying, all right, keep the little girls for yourself. And when they're old enough, then you can do your thing. Well, no, actually, Deuteronomy 21 tells you that with the captives that are taken in war, according to this divine commandment, you give them 1 month to mourn their mom and dad because you just killed their mom and dad. And you cut their hair, you cut their nails, give them 1 month to mourn, and then you go into them sexually. Okay, so you can't say, well, maybe they're just waiting until they're older. No, they're waiting 1 month and that's it. Okay. That's why it is the most difficult passage in the Bible. And now you can see what I'm saying. We're not shying away from this because, first of all, I don't think that anyone should shy away from something that's being discussed in the Bible because it's being discussed in the Bible. If it's being discussed in the Bible, it needs to be engaged. And then number two, it's really all over apologetic discussions, as I'm going to show you later on. And so something that has to be addressed head on. By the way, that issue with Numbers 31 that I was telling you, let me show you where it says that and describes this for you. For Numbers 31, let's go to it. I'm sorry, Deuteronomy 31. Let's try it again. Verbum is really acting up today. Should have just gone and used Bible.cc at this point. Verbum, you're failing me. Let me take the Hebrew out. Maybe maximize that a little bit for you. Zoom in a little bit so you can see the text. Okay. It's Deuteronomy 21. Here we go. Let's start with verse 10. When you go forth to war against your enemies and the Lord your God gives them into your hands and you take them captive. Okay, so that's what we just saw previously in Numbers 31. The little girls are taken as captives. And see among the captives a beautiful woman, and you have desire for her and would take her for yourself as a wife. So you want to have sex with her and take her as a wife. Then you bring her to your home, to your house, and she shall shave her head and cut her nails and put off her captive's garb, and she will remain in your house and mourn for her father and mother a full month. After that, you may go into her. So after that, you can have sex with her. And be her husband, and she shall be your wife. Then, if you're not happy with her, then if you have no delight in her, you shall let her go where she will, but you shall not sell her for money. You shall not treat her as a slave, since you have humiliated her. So it's saying the women captives, and these obviously conceptually include little girls. You can take them after a month, engage in sexual intercourse with them. Then, as a result, they become your wife. And then if you're not happy with them, you can cast them aside. So after you've already taken them and taken away their virginity, you don't like them? Bye. You can just let them go. But don't make them a slave. There's a little bit of coffee. Don't make them a slave now. Okay, you can see why this is incredibly tough in a difficult scenario. Can you imagine a little girl whose mom and dad you just killed, and that little girl, you take her as captive, and then let her mourn her mom and dad for a month, and then you go into her and make her your wife, but then you're not happy with her, so you just tell her, peace out. Can you imagine a scenario like this? This is what's being described here, however. And it's not just adult women. That would be bad enough. It includes women below the age of reason, or girls below the age of reason, as we just established. Okay, so let's explore a number of things here. We have a number of problems. Number one, kill the young boys. Well, what did the young boys do? We'll see a few potential solutions on how some have attempted to explain that, but that's pretty bad. Kill all the women. Why? Because women led people to Idolatry. Okay, but did all of the women do that? Sounds like collective punishment to me. Take the young girls for yourself. We established how young they were. Certainly below puberty. I will point out, however, one of the reasons why you probably haven't ever picked up on this is because of the dishonesty of translators. And I'm really, I have to be honest. I've read the Bible cover to cover almost over 10 times, cover to cover. And I usually have not picked up on this because definitely didn't look into the Hebrew of this particular passage. I was just reading English translations, and it's unfortunate. A lot of the English translations are misleading and dishonest. They'll say for the young boys that you kill, they'll call them little children. But then when it comes to the young girls that you can have intercourse with, it won't call them little girls. It will call them young women. Now, what do you think of when you think of a woman? Mature, right? Maybe 18 or older. And if you were to say young woman, okay, maybe still 18 or older. But some might say, well, no, when it's a young woman, I think of 13, 14, 15. Okay, whatever. You're still thinking of someone above the age of puberty. Nobody, when they think of young woman, nobody thinks of someone below the age of puberty. And yet that's what's being described. So they'll play these little word games. The same word in Hebrew is being used for both of these categories. But for one, they'll call them little boys. The others, they'll call them young women. That's dishonest. That shows the translator is attempting to hide to you what the biblical text is actually saying. And honestly, this isn't the first case I've ever seen that. Now, some English translations are honest enough to say women, children, young girls, stuff like that. They're honest enough to kind of, alert you to there's something going on here, right? So not all are dishonest. But let's take a look at what some of the commentaries say on this matter. We maybe go to, again, Numbers 31. And let's take a look at some commentaries that they have here in Verbum. Let me share my screen. Unfortunately, almost all of the commentaries sidestep these issues. They will all consistently ignore the issue of how old or young these girls are. Every single commentary I've looked at ignores it. Every single one. That's a problem. When you can't find one biblical commentary that is honest enough to engage that issue, there's a serious problem here. And yet every single one that I opened up, and I opened up numerous ones, ignores it. Faithful Study Bible, however, does attempt to say this. The girls who had not had sexual intercourse with a man, since they were virgins, they had not been married and were likely fairly young. That's the farthest it will go. Fairly young is all it is. Okay, but how young is young? Different people have different conceptions of young, but I showed you etymologically and contextually that term is used for people who don't know the difference between right or wrong and cannot travel long distances. These are below the age of reason, certainly prepubescent. Without families, these would be very unlikely to rehabilitate and could therefore be absorbed into the Israelite community. Without families, these women would be very unlikely to retaliate and could therefore be absorbed into the Israelite community. Okay, well, there's already a problem. They're calling them women. But would you really call like 7-year-old, 6-year-old, 5-year-old woman? Come on, stop it. Stop it. This is deceptive. That's it. They don't have any other discussion of it. They do talk about the little boys that are killed. As was common in the ancient Near East, male children were also slain to prevent future opposition or blood vengeance. There's a problem with that, as I'll show here in a moment. Every woman who had sexual intercourse with a man, those are put to death. That is, those who had been married or may have their children with them in some context following a battle. The Israelites were allowed to take women as wives if they were not native Canaanites. However, the women described in the passage who had been involved in the idolatry and apostasy that cost Israelite lives would not be spared. All the non-virgins were slain. Okay, so that doesn't really help us. That doesn't really address the issues and the concerns. Go to a Protestant study Bible here, the NIV study Bible. I'm sorry, not NIV study Bible. I have that one over there. This is the study Bible. Let's go to that. Here's what it says. And I'll read that text to you, by the way, and show you how it reads in the NIV. Now, therefore, kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman who has not known a man by lying with him. But all the young girls who have not known man by lying with him, keep alive for yourselves. Now, in reference to that, it says, every male among the little ones were killed. This would preclude the perpetuation of the Midianite people and eliminate the Midianites as a nation forever, aka genocide. Girls without sexual experience, Numbers 31:18, who were not involved with the sin of Baal Peor, were allowed to live and marry Israelite warriors. That's it. It doesn't tell you anything else. So it says these little girls are marrying the Israelite warriors, but it tells you nothing about how young are these little girls that are marrying the Israelite warriors. I think that's dishonest to sidestep this when you're a commentary. Commentaries should address important issues. Probably the most difficult passage in the Bible, I would suggest. Okay, what about the Ignatius Catholic Study Bible? Let's go to it. What does Numbers 21 say? You think they're going to engage it? You think they'll touch that one with a 10-foot pole? Okay, it says, not known man, only the virgin girls of Midian who are spared. The rest, male and female, young and old, are put to death. Evidently, these actions were taken against a local population of Midianites and not against the whole people as a whole, since Midianites appear again in the time of the judges. That's it. Nothing about killing a whole bunch of little boys. Nothing about collective punishment. Nothing about rape. Right? Because obviously these people are not necessarily consenting to this sexual interaction, and nothing about little girls. So much for the Ignatius Catholic Study Bible. Well, I can go through numerous other commentaries with you, but surprise, surprise, none of them are touching it with a 10-foot pole. But we have seen a few solutions on a few of the issues offered here and there. I'll share my screen and show you a video that I found pretty interesting and was specifically on the subject. Oh, by the way, for whatever it's worth, and it might not be worth much, ChatGPT, I just had to ask it. Okay, how young were the girls who were kept alive in Numbers 31? I was curious what ChatGPT would say, again, for whatever that's worth. In Numbers 31, Moses commands Israel to take vengeance on the Midianites. After the battle, the Israelites kill all the men and bring back the women and children. Moses then orders the execution of all the boys and all the women who had not known a man sexually. But the young girls who had not known a man were to be kept alive. The text does not give specific age. The only distinction is sexual experience. Women who had not known man sexually, put to death. Girls who had not known man sexually, spared and kept alive. This would mean that any prepubescent girls and possibly virginal adolescents were preserved. Ancient Israel didn't define childhood and adolescence with fixed age the way that we do today. Categories were marked more by biological and social maturity, like puberty, betrothal, marriage. So in short, the girls could range from infancy up until puberty, depending on when a girl would be recognized as potentially marriageable or knowing man. And again, according to the way the term in the text is used biblically, It's in reference to girls who don't know the difference between right and wrong, who are not yet morally developed, which again, I think is reasonable to say probably below 7. Okay. Now, let's take a look at one solution that I saw one person attempt to offer. This is one Dr. Jonathan McLatchie, who had a debate with cosmic skeptic Alex O'Connor, who's an atheist. And he does like a follow-up video to the debate and attempts to tackle the question. Number one, around the 3-minute, 18-second mark, he takes a stab at it. Let's see what he says. Let me also make sure that you can hear the audio. Let me turn the audio on here. Okay. Here we go.
Verse 31. And the verse that my opponent read in the debate was verse 17. Now, therefore, kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman who has known man by lying with him. But all the young girls who have not known man by lying with him, keep alive for yourselves. And the idea that Alex O'Connor brought up was that this text supports and even condones sexual slavery, that these virgin women from among the Midianite camp are being taken as sex slaves. And this is morally abominable. And this is one of the reasons why, in his opinion, we should reject Christianity. Now, of course, it should be noted that this really is an objection to the inerrancy of Scripture, not to Christianity itself. Christianity, I think, does not rest on inerrancy. I happen to be an inerrantist myself, but if inerrancy turned out to be false, I think the case is still overwhelming that Christianity is true.
Okay, so in reference to this part, he wants to say, well, one potential solution is to throw out the idea of inerrancy, which he says, look, I'm an inerrantist. I don't throw out inerrancy. But worst case scenario, if there's no other way around it, well, you would throw out inerrancy and just say this was a mistake. This was something added to the Bible. This is not something inspired by God. This was purely written by man. But the other parts, of the Bible may be true, and therefore Christianity is still true. Again, he doesn't adopt that personally, but he is throwing it out as a potential solution. And to which I want to say to that, if that were the case, how do we then know what is from God and what's not from God in the Bible, right? Is it that based on our personal judgment of what's morally right and what's morally wrong? So we're the ultimate arbiters of truth. So we're now going to sit in judgment of what is Scripture, what is not Scripture, rather than letting Scripture form us and sit in judgment of us and tell us the difference between right and wrong. I thought the purpose of Scripture was to tell us the difference between right and wrong. If I'm having to use my reason and myself as a standard to judge what is Scripture, it seems to defeat the purpose of divine Scripture as a teacher of morality. So it causes some serious problems there. Are we then the arbiters of truth? We then determine what is right, what is wrong, and then judge everything else by that, rather than the other way around. So there's a serious difficulty there. One of the other solutions that we saw there in the biblical commentaries over and over, and we also saw, if you watch the rest of that video by McLatchie, he attempts to defend this, actually in a different video, in the debate that he had with Alex O'Connor. He attempts to defend the young boys being killed part, or at least explain it, I should say. He says, look, kids can be killed because they might retaliate when they grow up. And we saw that from the Bible commentaries, the ones that actually dared to address it, right? That's not really a satisfactory solution. First of all, do the ends justify the means? Is that really a standard of morality that a Christian should adopt? The ends justify the means? By the way, isn't this Herod's and Pharaoh's mentality? let me go and kill these little kids in Bethlehem and, in Egypt. Let me go and kill these little kids because they might grow up into something that's threatening to me. It's almost weird. It's almost like some people are adopting the mentality of Herod and Pharaoh to address this difficulty in the Bible. It's odd. And how consistent would one really be with that? Do you want to say, well, you know what? There's this group right now that's genociding people in the Middle East. Okay, so to stop them from genociding people in the future, I guess we have to now genocide all the little kids so that they don't grow up and genocide more people. Is that really a solution? This is a slippery slope. Also, can you punish someone for something they haven't yet done and may not do? We don't know what somebody would have done when they were older. We don't know that. And they haven't done it yet anyway. Look, my neighbor might threaten me. Does that mean I get to go and kill my neighbor? If you have a neighbor who's a thief, they might steal from me. Does that mean I get to go and kill them? Or steal from them? How can you prosecute people for something they haven't yet done and may not do? This seems to be a really problematic solution. So I don't know if that's really a good one. That doesn't seem very satisfactory. I saw some people like Dinesh D'Souza in his debate with Alex O'Connor. They weren't talking specifically about Numbers 31, but they were talking about like the slaughter of the Canaanites. And I think they maybe did bring up Midianites, but the idea was in scope. And his attempt at a solution was, that's kind of the Old Testament. What we have in the standard of the New Testament is a higher standard of morality. And, the New Testament is to kind of bring us out of those things and call us to a higher standard and yada, 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 yada. And you might hear some people say, well, that's the Old Testament. We're in the New Covenant. All right. There's serious problems with that. So the moral standards God prescribes in the Old Testament are different than the ones in the New Testament? Is that really a thesis one wants to defend? And if you want to defend it, okay, now you have to say rape, because again, these little girls, you really think that they're consenting to this as captives? They just watched you kill their mom and dad. You really think they're consenting to, after 1 month, you having sexual intercourse with them? At what? Below the age of 7? You really think that they're consenting to that? Of course not. Okay, that's known as rape, right? So you would have to say, all right, the moral prescriptions in the Old Testament and standards in the Old Testament are different than the New Testament. Okay, so rape, killing young boys, collective punishment, and pedophilia is okay in the Old Testament, but somehow not a big deal because it's no longer okay in the New Testament. Is that really an argument somebody wants to employ? I think that's a terrible response. I don't think that that's really satisfying. It's almost Manichaean, that posits that the God of the Old Testament is a different God than the God of the New Testament. It's almost a Manichaean idea, or a Marcionite idea, that again posits these are two different gods. So God is okay with pedophilia in the Old Testament, but he's against it in the New. Like what's going on here? That is again not a very intellectually satisfying response. Now, one other thing I saw from McLatchie was this. He attempts to say, look, this isn't sex slavery, because Alex O'Connor wanted to say, well, look, you have sex slavery here in Numbers 31. And in this video, again, that I'll show you on my screen, that video right here called Does Numbers 31 Condone Sexual Slavery? A Response to Cosmic Skeptic, Dr. McLatchie wants to say, well, it's not sex slavery, because again, as we saw in Deuteronomy 21, after you go into these little girls and use them for what you want to use them for, you can, if you don't like them, you can kick them out. Just say bye, but don't use them as a slave. Just let them go freely. Okay. So he wants to say, well, it's not sex slavery because it tells you not to turn them into slaves. Okay, but that sidesteps literally everything else. Can you imagine a guy in court telling a judge, I didn't torture the guy for 30 hours. They accused me of torturing the guy for 30 hours. I didn't torture him for 30 hours. I just hurt the guy for 2 hours, and then I raped him and then murdered the guy in cold blood. So I didn't torture him for 30 hours. I just hurt him for 20 hours, raped him, and then murdered him. What? Huh? That's not a defense. That's not a defense at all. That doesn't make it better. Because it was for 2 hours, not 30. That doesn't make it better. I'm sorry. You're still going to jail. What? It's reprehensible to say, well, it's not sex slavery, and then sidestep everything else. What? What kind of defense is that? Sidesteps the age of the girls, doesn't address the issue. Dr. McLatchie says nothing about the age, just completely reads over that. No comment on it. And likely everyone in the comment section roasted him on that point. Sidesteps their age. Doesn't really address in any substantive way the killing of young boys. Doesn't address the issue of collective punishment. Doesn't address the issue of rape. Well, actually, he does. I take that back. McLatchie does address the issue of rape. You know how he tries to defend it? He says it's not rape because God nowhere says that, you can have intercourse with them if they don't want to consent. Think about that for a moment. So because it doesn't say anything about it, therefore it's against rape? Well, that makes no sense. And again, how many girls below the age of 7 are going to want to sleep with one of these older guys that just murdered their mom and dad? I mean, seriously, is this a joke? And it literally says, after 1 month, you can go into them. It doesn't say only if they consent. So I thought that was really terrible. I don't think that addressed the issue. I think that really downplays it all. Some might say, well, God merely tolerated these things. That's, I think, inadequate. The text doesn't read like God's merely tolerating it. That's number one. I think you have to unnaturally read that into the text. Number two, look, God prohibited a lot of things in the Old Testament that were very common at the time. Why not then go ahead and prohibit this one? Also in Deuteronomy and in Numbers, some of these things are not just tolerated, they're divinely prescribed. I'll add in Numbers 31:25, God is giving a command to take count of the plunder. In the plunder is these little girls. And that's explicit in the text. God's identifying the little girls that you take as plunder. So the text imputes to God that these little girls are part of the plunder. This isn't just tolerance. I'll also add in the New Testament, Jesus upheld the law and then fulfilled it. He didn't repudiate the law and fulfill it. And he didn't say some of the law is sinful and then fulfill it. He rather upheld the law, confirmed the law, and then fulfilled it. There's a huge difference. And this does address issues of the law because some of these are prescriptive in nature when you look at it in context. So from what I'm seeing from, McLatchie or from Ignatius Study Bible or NIV Study Bible or any of these, I'm not seeing anything that's a satisfactory solution. Not if you're going to be honest. Which then means, in my opinion, this issue needs to be further addressed by scholarship and especially apologists. I see apologists preoccupied with the most petty things conceivable, things that really are of no consequence. Meanwhile, the big, huge issues are left unaddressed. I think this needs to be addressed more sufficiently. I've seen a few again try to tackle it, but what I'm saying is I think there needs to be a more adequate treatment of it, because everything that I've seen so far, and I'm not omniscient, I haven't seen every solution so far. I'm just saying the ones that I've seen, none of them are satisfactory. In fact, I would say all of the potential solutions that I've seen people offer lead to further problems. They don't help, they make it worse. And I think I just demonstrated that just now. Now, if you know of other solutions, please let me know. But at the very least, I think it needs to be explored more. And I do believe it's going to, because as I'm about to show you, you got people who are bringing this up, atheists, Muslims, and others, but especially those two groups bring this up very often. I'm going to show you instances of those right now. Alex O'Connor being first. He's atheist or agnostic. I've seen him identified as atheist. He talks about this in his debate with McLatchie. I'll actually pull that up right now and show you just a few minutes where they're talking about it. Alex points out how he's an atheist because he can't believe that the God of the Bible is God, because Numbers 31 and stuff like that. He just says, look, this is morally, reprehensible, and there's no way to defend it. Therefore, he concludes Christianity is false. Now, again, McLatchie says in response to that in the follow-up video that, well, look, worst case scenario, it just means there's an error in the Bible. This part isn't written by man, but other parts are written by God, and Christianity is still true. It just means that you have to ditch inerrancy. And I showed you why. That's also still a difficulty. But let's go to that part of the debate and talk about it before we look at some other apologetic discussions that have been exploring this in recent times. Let me share my screen, and let me make sure that you can hear that audio. Okay. Let's go to the 52-minute mark. They're just briefly going to touch on it at the very, very end. Unfortunately, they don't get a chance to talk more about it. But let's watch it and let me know if you'll have any difficulties in hearing it there in the comment section. Let's go ahead and begin.
Not to be punished if the slave gets up after recovering from the beating
yeah,
with
but
a rod.
the word punished there in Hebrew means punishment by death. So they get the death penalty. If they kill the slave, they get the death penalty.
Okay, what about Numbers 31?
Yeah.
I don't want to run out of time here. I'm sure you're familiar. Actually, I don't know where we are on time.
About 30 seconds.
Okay,
yeah.
we'll try it for 30 seconds. Numbers 31, of course, in fact, I'll just quote it. Moses instructs the following they're attacking the Midianites and essentially committing a genocide against the Midianites. And Moses instructs his combatants, now kill all the boys and kill every woman who has slept with a man, but save for yourselves every girl who has never slept with a man. Now, I'm not entirely sure what a bunch of aggressive males could want with a bunch of virgin girls. I'll leave that up to the imagination of the audience. But to me, this seems not just slavery in terms of like a voluntary service contract. This seems a fairly grotesque form of sexual slavery being quite clearly advocated here. Even in the course of war, I don't think that's acceptable.
Okay. So this is in Numbers 31, and so on the issue of the killing, so there's a whole range of moral arguments that we need to get into on genocide.
I understand. Yeah. So
and on whether it's always wrong to kill innocent people, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not convinced that it's always wrong to kill innocent people.
Yeah, no, me neither. But it's always wrong to keep them the sex slaves.
And I also think, in terms of killing innocent people, I think it's difficult to make moral judgments on an omniscient being who has access to things that can happen in the future as consequences.
Right. Maybe we could just put it up to a divine mystery why the moral creator of the universe would allow people to take sex slaves, but I don't think that's really convincing me.
Yeah, I confess I do struggle with this text, so I don't know the answer to that question. But I think it's one of the more difficult.
I'm glad, because I've seen so many people try to defend it. I really like that answer. But what I would say is that what we're discussing here is why I'm not a Christian and why you are a Christian. The reason I'm not is because, like you, I look at texts like this, I'm confused by them at the very least, and I turn to people for answers. They can't be found. What we are left with is having to throw our hands up in the sky and saying, maybe the author of morality can permit sexual slavery, and that's just not good enough.
So you, I'll just make one final statement. You do have a good point on this text, that it is difficult to understand what's going on here. So I fully admit that. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate McLatchie there. He admits, look, this is a really seriously difficult passage. I can respect that. And he says in that follow-up video, I'm not going to shy away from the fact this is a serious difficulty. I think we need to admit that when it is. Hey, you know what? I appreciate that. I respect that. I think that's the right approach. Admit it, and then look for some solutions. But yeah, don't downplay the problem here. And I think he still went on to downplay the problem, but I at least appreciate the initial disposition. But here you could see him admitting this is a serious difficulty. You could see Alex O'Connor setting it up as sex slavery. Again, in his follow-up, all he attempts to do is refute that it's sex slavery instead of addressing all of the other issues. So again, you can see it coming up in apologetic circles, and you can see why Alex O'Connor would say this is a difficulty for him believing in God. And so it really rightly needs to be addressed. And by the way, there was another potential solution I have seen some people try to do, and they'll try to say, look, these passages aren't literal. They didn't actually happen. In fact, I think I see somebody in the chat trying to do it as I'm saying that. Here's, I think, maybe an attempt to do that right now. Many of the Old Testament stories illustrate the same overall point: those who are God's people and those who are not. After all, those who are not will burn in hell. So there, literally, as I was saying that, somebody just commented. Some will attempt to say, look, these passages in the Old Testament, they're not literal. They didn't literally go and kill, these people and do all that. It's some kind of theological illustration of some other point. What theological illustration do you get from symbolizing pedophilia, rape, and genocide and murder? What? Are you serious? Like, no, that's not intellectually satisfying. I'm sorry. You might try to downplay it by just saying, well, look, they're not really killing everyone. It's an analogy of how we need to kill all the sin in our lives. Okay, so the pedophilia part, what's that an analogy for? What? Seriously? What? No, come on. And you mean to tell me that, so the Bible makes it look like it's allowing for pedophilia and murder and collective punishment and rape and genocide, but it's like a pump fake. It's misleading you. It's really telling you something else. What? And that's a good thing to make you think that it's endorsing pedophilia and rape and all that, but really it's like psych, pump fake. It's actually something else. That's a good thing? No, that's not a solution. I'm sorry, that's not a solution. Great Wall, going back and watch the whole video. I'm not answering and repeating myself over and over. Again, for anyone who's just now tuning in, if you're not following what I'm saying, go back and watch the whole video. Please do not ask questions that I've already answered in the video. People have to stop doing that. People need to stop coming into the middle of a video and asking questions and then being confused. You do not open up a Bible or a book in the middle of a if you had some book here, you don't just open up in the very middle and try to figure out what's going on. No, you start from the beginning. You don't do that with books. Don't do that with videos. All right, so you listen to the whole video from the start. So as far as the sexual part, as I showed in the video, you say that you watched, I showed the text shows that the Hebrew term used is to describe young girls. How young? Young that they don't know the difference between right and wrong. And that came from the program here, Verbum, And let's go to it real quick so you know the tool that I'm using. Let's see here. Sorry for this conversation being derailed, but let me address it now. Because, of course, as soon as I end the video, somebody will be like, but Michael, wait. Okay. Okay, here we go. Yeah. Let me share my screen again. Not asking questions without listening to the video. Well, good. I appreciate that. Sorry for thinking that you were. All right. 2945 from Strong's. And this is DBL Hebrew Strong's Hebrew entry number 2945. You can see it references Deuteronomy 139 to help define how young is young here. Offspring that are young enough, or that are young and not able to easily walk long distances, nor fully developed in their moral values. Deuteronomy 139. To which I want to say, how old is someone who's not fully developed in their moral values? It's going to be below the age of reason. But all of the tools exegetically indicate that these young girls are prepubescent, and maybe some adolescent who are also puberty, but certainly below that as well. Okay, so that's where we're getting that from, among other places. Now, back to the point here. Let me now show you where this is elsewhere being used. Of course, Bart Ehrman. See, Vader says, I'm sorry, I don't find this passage difficult. Seems pretty easily explained. Do share your solution, Vader. Seems that we've all missed your infinite wisdom here because everybody else sees it as a huge difficulty. Do share your solutions on explaining what we've seen here. Okay, so you have atheists like Bart Ehrman, who of course are going to point this out. He says Moses orders that every male child be murdered, along with every woman who had ever had sex, even with their husband. He tells the Israelite soldiers to spare the Midianite girls who have never had sex. Well, sort of spared. Moses tells his soldiers that the virgin girls they can keep alive for yourselves. Keep from what? Either they are simply enslaved, or more likely, since the criteria of their escape from death is sexual, they're made sex slaves. All the booty, oxen, donkeys, sheep, goats, gold, jewelry, and so on is divided up. By the way, he says they're sex slaves. Now, numerous other sources approve that, but what about in reference to McLatchie, who says, but wait, doesn't it say if you throw them away and you don't need them, and after you've used them, don't turn them into a slave? Yeah, don't make them a slave after you've done away with them. That doesn't mean you can't have them as a slave prior, but whatever. All right, so all the booty, oxen, donkeys, sheep, goats, gold, jewelry, and so on is divided up between the warriors and the rest of the Israelites, with a part being offered up to the sanctuary of God. And it says the gold could be used for vessels connected with worship. I have known very few readers of the Bible over the years who are even aware of biblical accounts like this. True. I guess that makes sense. How many people do you know who have read Numbers recently? Well, it's not just that. It's that when you read through it, a lot of times it's easy to just read it past this, especially if your English translation is lying to you and misleading you and making it say young women instead of little girls. That's the problem. Okay. But he says, but it's in the Bible, the book that Jews and Christians have considered sacred scripture from the outset. What does one do with this kind of story? Those few who do know about it often try to soften it or justify it. God is just, and he insists his people need to be pure and removed from outside influences. Sometimes that requires harsh measures. You know, if anybody were to say that, I would say, okay, that might explain the killing part. That doesn't explain the rape and pedophilia part. He says, but really the women and boys, including infants, had to be slaughtered in cold blood so Israelites wouldn't be drawn to worship of other gods. The young girls who had never had sex can be kept by the Israelite men. What kind of religion is this, he says. So for him, it's a huge stumbling block in believing in God at all, and believing in Judaism, believing in Christianity, and believing in the Bible. He says, I don't think there's really any way to get around just how horrendous it is, and we might justifiably ask, is this the God people want to worship and will emulate? If so, shouldn't they do what he demands and slaughter everyone who might lead them into impurity? I suppose most readers would say that these were exceptional circumstances, not models of action. But even on those terms, slaughtering innocent people because they worshipped differently. He says many Christians, of course, would simply assign it to the Old Testament and say either that this is how it used to be, and that it shows how awful Judaism was in relation to what came after with the religion of love found in the New Testament. He says, in my book, I'll be arguing this view can't be held in the light of the book of Revelation. And I've also tackled that point and showed the difficulties with it. So, but here again, you can see another atheist struggling with the text saying this needs to be addressed, right? So I do think that it is something that deserves more treatment, that a more convincing solution needs to be offered. Our friend here, Vader, I was asking him to offer the solution. He said it was totally easy to explain the rape, pedophilia, murder, genocide, and all of that in the text. So I was like, okay, let's hear it. He says, what's difficult about it? There are many difficult verses, but I don't find the verse in particular difficult. So he's not giving the solution. Vader, I think we're all eagerly waiting on the edge of our seat to explain how pedophilia, rape, genocide, and murder and collective punishment can be explained. Please do that. I would appreciate your wisdom here. Evan said, did you see my suggestion? No. What was your suggestion? I want to hear solutions because I think more need to be offered. He says, I think part of the difficulty comes from attributing the phrase keep alive for yourselves to the soldiers in verse 12. The captives and spoils were brought before all of Israel, not just the men. I don't see how that alleviates the difficulty. It tells that the men can go into the captives. They can go into them. We went over that verse. And how does that address the issue of killing all the young boys? I'm sorry, that's not an adequate solution. Okay. Ponti says, I think Vader's point isn't about explaining it, but questioning why it needs to be explained at all. Okay, well, if you don't know why pedophilia, rape, genocide, murder, and collective punishment need to be explained, I can't help you. I can't help you. Yeah. But I appreciate the clarification there, Ponti. Maybe that's what he means. I don't know. Okay. Now let's move on to other apologetic circles where we see this. I brought up two atheists. Now I want to bring two Muslims up here. We see here this is from Blogging Theology, Paul Williams. Do some people think Numbers 31 involved rape of Midianites? And he points out a number of scholars, professors on criminal justice and law and statistics and all kinds of stuff. He brings up these scholars of the Old Testament and Hebrew Bible, who all in the article that he mentions here, I'm not going to read the entire thing, but I'm just pointing it out. They point out how this is about rape, because again, the girls that you're going into, right? Are they consenting to this? I don't know. Maybe some of them do. I suspect many of them don't, right? So they would say that seems to sanction rape, and they're often citing Numbers 31, 17 through 18. Among others like Judges. I think they had Judges 5:30 brought up, Genesis 34, Numbers 31, Judges 5:30. They say the connection between war and the rape of women of the conquered people is recording in these biblical texts. And so you have a lot of these scholars, these Muslims are pointing out, you got a lot of these scholars who are saying this, right? This is all the more reason why I say, again, it needs to be addressed, because critics of the Bible, critics of Christianity are going to bring this up as concerns, and there needs to be a response, right? I want to point out another one here, maybe about 5 minutes, where a Muslim and a Protestant pastor, I don't know what denomination, I don't know really a whole lot about the guy, where they're having some kind of street debate, and this issue comes up because the Protestant preacher brings up the issue of Muhammad and Aisha and the age of Aisha, and so then the Muslim brings up Numbers 31 and also Deuteronomy 21. Okay, so let's go over that part. Let me pull it up and show you where these things are being discussed. And I'll show you how the pastor attempts to respond, and we'll briefly examine whether
Sounds
that's a
good.
sufficient response. It's from a video called Famous Preacher Comes Back and Gets Humiliated by the Orthodox Muslim, which I'm actually going to have a number of debates that I'm hosting, and he is going to be on some of those debates. Okay. At the 1 hour, 33 minutes, the pastor brings up this issue with the age of Aisha, and then they begin to discuss that and Numbers 31. Let's go to 1 hour, 33. I'll just start at maybe the 26-minute mark. So, okay, the guy over here on the right is a Protestant pastor. Again, I don't know denomination, stuff like that, okay? The guy over here is a Muslim. This is the Orthodox Muslim, the guy in the white shirt. And you can see they're having a street debate. So they're talking about these things very openly with a large crowd. And so this stuff it's out there. It's in apologetic circles. All the more reason why it needs to be tackled sufficiently. Okay, so let's go ahead and watch it. Please let me know if there's any difficulties in hearing the audio. We're going to watch about a 6-minute clip or so. Okay, let's begin.
The age of puberty. That was his tradition. So I apologize, but that's the fact. He married Aisha at 6 years old, and you can look inside the hadiths and the Quran, and there's many passages that describe when a person can actually sleep with a woman. Even prepubescent women, Muhammad authorized that you could sleep with a prepubescent woman even after 3 months of waiting. And that is in the Quran. Look it up. Look it up.
All right.
Want me to show you?
Fantastic.
Oh, my time is over. So
Fantastic.
my time is over.
Hey, fantastic. Thank you so much. Hey, let's get the time going. All right, so that was a very excellent question by brother.
Go.
Hey,
he's gonna respond, and I gotta go. Yeah. Wait the time.
All right, hold on.
Go ahead.
All right, fantastic question. Yes, absolutely. The brother is right. Jesus says, Matthew 23, the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, they teach the law. They have the authority of Moses, so be sure to observe everything they tell you. Well, we have rabbis from the time of Jesus and sages from the time of Jesus that tell you that you can sleep with a 3-year-old. So according to Jesus, you can't sleep with a 3-year-old. As a matter of fact, yesterday you confirmed to us that you can sleep with children. It's on tape. So you said that yesterday. It's on tape. Everybody can go to my YouTube channel and check it out. You said it. You said the little girls were taken. So don't interrupt me. So yeah.
Oh, so for context, they had another debate the day before, and I watched that debate. But he's going to play a quick clip of it here in a moment. That's why I'm not going to the original source, because he's going to go to it. But that's what he's referencing there.
So yeah, don't put it. Yeah, exactly. No, I want to clarify. No, in Islam we do not believe in child marriage. Absolutely not. We believe that when a female becomes marriageable and she becomes a woman and she meets the conditions of marriage, then she is to be married as a woman. We don't believe in child marriage, but according to David Lynn, his own words, not mine, his God allowed little girls to be taken as concubines.
All right, that's it. All right.
Okay. I can't even respond, so it's all good. It's all good. Everybody, God bless you. I do gotta go, and I really gotta go. Okay, listen.
One more Christian.
Listen. I could I could easily respond to that. I'm actually following the rules, unlike some other people. But go back to the video yesterday, which we caught him lying. He said that God commanded Moses to sleep with 32 people.
Yourself.
Check the video; it's online. He says one thing and he says another. There's nowhere in that video where I said God said it's okay to sleep with 3-year-olds. This guy's clearly.
Let's
Please,
play it on tape.
please, I want to hear
Let's play it.
where I said God said it's okay to sleep with 3-year-olds.
All right, challenge accepted.
Challenge. Go ahead.
Challenge accepted. Here we go. Here we go.
I'm gonna let him show me that I said God said it's okay to sleep with 3-year-olds.
Here we go. Yeah, don't worry, my friend.
So just don't lie, because we caught you in one lie already.
I got you.
Muslims like to use taqiya all the time.
Where's the video here?
Go ahead.
Oh,
Very quickly, because I don't have too much time.
the sound ain't working. Can you get?
Now he's gonna try to find it. Let me skip forward. I think it's like a minute. It takes him like a minute. Let me skip just a little bit.
Why he's taking so long?
Oh, here we go.
So again, for the 5th time now, Mr. Lin, Numbers 31, verse 17. Do you confirm that it says to kill the infant?
Yeah, that verse.
Oh, yeah. Wait. No, guys, stop. Let him get to the part.
Do you confirm that it says to kill the women who are not virgins?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. All right. Do you confirm that it says to take the little girls for yourself? Hey, be quiet. Do you take the little girls for yourself? Sounds good. Sounds good. So now after that, does God break down how to split the Lord booty amongst the congregation and the combatants? Yes or no?
Most likely.
There you go. Thank you, my friend. There you go, my friend. Thank you so
Are you
much.
serious?
So take the little girls.
Where did I say that God said to sleep with 3-year-olds?
God said to
Okay,
take
just put up your hands. Did I say here that God said to sleep with 3-year-olds? Put up your hand if you heard that. You actually heard that. You got 2 Muslims. Look at these guys. You're telling me that said God said to sleep with 3-year-olds. Are you literally gonna?
What's up?
You want to explain that?
No.
I can't believe it.
Okay, the prerequisite. Can I hold it for a second, please? Thank you. The prerequisite verse.
So I don't think the pastor was saying 3-year-olds. I think the age 3 came up from a Jewish commentary or something, the Talmud or something, which of course the pastor is not going to be bound to accepting. But I think there's still the difficulty that these are prepubescent girls, as we just described. So 3 or not, still prepubescent. So the difficulty is still there, right? Okay, let's continue here.
Qualifies women who should be killed as women who have slept with men. And the next qualifier for the next set of young girls, children, that you should keep them is because they have not slept with men. So if you're taking them for yourself under that condition, with that qualification, what are you taking them for?
Can I answer you?
Yeah.
Okay, so you just admitted that I never said anything about 3-year-olds. You're all of a sudden putting an age inside that text when it wasn't there, and you just blatantly lied before the. No, I'm answering you. I listened to you.
Yeah, I don't think the guy was committed to any particular age, and I think he's right there, but I think the difficulty still remains that he's the one who brought up the issue of Aisha and then seemed to be blindsided by the situation with Numbers 31 and didn't have any kind of real substantive response to the issue except say, well, no, I'm not saying that they were 3. Okay. That still doesn't address that they're prepubescent, right? Doesn't address the issue of killing the little boys, doesn't address the issue of rape, doesn't address any of the remaining concerns, right? And so, like you can see, these things are being discussed in these debates between Christians and atheists, Christians and Muslims. At least those are the contexts in which I've seen them in. Maybe there's some other contexts in which they're brought up as well. Probably if you have somebody who is a Christian inerrantist versus a Christian non-inerrantist, I suspect you would have it there as well. So I don't think it's maybe exclusive to those discussions, but it certainly will come up in debates about the inspiration of the Bible, inerrancy, reliability of the Bible, the moral standards, Christianity as a whole. It would also come up in, Judaism. So I suspect if there's an atheist Jewish debate or a Muslim Jewish debate, I could certainly foresee or suspect that those would be brought up in those conversations as well. And so it's being brought up a lot. All the more reason why I'm saying the solutions that I'm seeing being proposed so far, if one is even offering solutions, are absolutely inadequate. And they show, in my opinion, more difficulties than rather offering any solution. And so something better needs to be offered. More work needs to be done here. I think apologists, theologians, and biblical scholars need to spend more time addressing this than maybe some of the other things that are being addressed right now online, because it seems to me this is a big one. And then again, my opinion, and it looks like in the opinion of a lot of others, this would be the toughest passage in the Bible. But I want to hear from you. If you have any solutions that you think can be offered, I want to hear from you in the comment section. Please put them there. I would love to see your thoughts on the matter. I would love to hear your feedback. Make sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button as well. Also, if you want to check out my courses on the Magisterium that I just posted, these are the same courses that I offer at a Catholic university, but now they're made available to you, the exact same videos. Go to rtcourses.com. You'll find an introduction to the Magisterium video, the history of the Magisterium, and how to evaluate magisterial documents, as well as other courses. I think you'll find them very helpful. Just a tip for y'all. If you buy one of the courses after you've purchased it, then it will give you 50% off the other two courses that I just mentioned there. But that's after the time of purchase, not during the time of checkout, but afterwards. So if you're wondering, hey, where's that discount on these others? It's after you've purchased one of them. Then you get the 50% off the other two. But take advantage of it. That way you're not having to come back later on, pay full price for all three courses. Take advantage of the 50% off after you've made a purchase on one of those. So it's rtcourses.com. Also, if you want to support the channel, great way to do it. There's a GoFundMe link in the show notes, a PayPal link. There's also a Patreon link. You can become a patron at patreon.com/reasoned theology, or hit the join button right here next to the subscribe button. So if you appreciate the content of this channel, the exploration of very difficult issues theologically, historically, in contemporary society, I don't shy away from any of it. If you appreciate that honest and open conversation, please show your support for the channel. And again, I want to hear from y'all. Offer some solutions, put them in the comment section. I look forward to reading y'all's responses. All right, see you soon. God bless.